everyone. I'm Ditto, President and CEO of the American Public Power Association, and I'd like to welcome you to this episode of Public Power Conversations. Cybersecurity has been thrust into the spotlight due to a recent high-profile, far-reaching supply chain compromise. But this has been a top priority and area of focus for public power and for the rest of the electric utility industry for many years. Public power utilities are keenly focused on protecting their digital assets, including their operational systems and customer data. Here to discuss how public power communities tackle this broad challenge from the city of Bryan, Texas, are Bernie Acre and Scott Smith. Mr. Acre is the Chief Information Officer for the city of Bryan and has more than 40 years of experience in the technology field, including 20 with the U.S. Air Force, and 20 in municipal electric and cooperative organizations. In addition to his work with Bryan, he's also active with state-level organizations, including the Texas Cybersecurity Council. Well, welcome, Bernie, and thank you for your service as well. Scott Smith is the City of Bryan's Chief Information Officer. He has expertise in information and physical security management, IT compliance management, CIS controls and benchmarks, and critical information infrastructure protection. Prior to working with the city, he spent 11 years managing IT operations for Bryan, Texas utilities. Thank you also for joining us, Scott, and for your experience with public power utility. So I have some questions to guide the conversation, but we're free to wander off wherever it takes us, and we're just going to jump right in. So first of all, as I was talking about in the introduction, I think we need to acknowledge the what has been termed the SolarWinds supply chain compromise, and which has affected a wide range of organizations, including the private sector, government agencies, and some electric utility operators. How have the city of Bryan and Bryan Utilities collaborated to respond to this serious situation to date without getting into any specifics about your networks, of course? And Scott, I think you might want to take this one.
Sure. Thanks, Joy. Thanks for having us. You know, this one raised a lot of eyebrows, the SolarWinds breach. You know, and it was the complexity of it, and all indications it was a sponsored nation state, well-funded, well-talented group that did this. You know, got into the supply chain of obviously SolarWinds, and then several companies downloaded the malware. This is different. You know, we don't use SolarWinds Orion, but we do use some other SolarWinds products. And out of abundance of caution, we've contracted with our vulnerability testing agency that we use to come in and just do a kind of sanity check, just to make sure we don't have any indicators of compromise or anything related to what's going on. But you're right, it's a major deal. It's far-reaching. It's a global issue, and has really changed, I think, the way security is going to be viewed in the future.
Well, thanks for that. And again, as you were saying, a lot of lessons learned that we don't even know yet as these forensics are done on this breach, and I'm sure we'll come back later on as public power and have some lessons learned that can be applied in the future. But stepping back a bit, what is your utilities or your community's general philosophical approach to cybersecurity? And either of you can take this. Feel free to jump in.
Well, thank you, Joy. This is Bernie Acre. I'm the CIO, and Scott is the CISO. He's smarter than me. That's why he has in the title. But I don't want to oversimplify, but our basic concept is KISS. We have to keep it simple, and but we have to have support from the top. If we didn't have the city manager and the mayor on board with this, and all of the department heads, including Gary Miller, the general manager for BTU, we wouldn't have a successful program. And so our strength is in our leadership's participation and support of it. And we have a very strong training program as well.
That's great. Really important to remember that, those relationships and support from leadership. So how would you just generally characterize the cyber landscape for public power and public power communities in 2020? And then what's the outlook for 2021?
Well, Joy, I think, it's a good question, especially, like we mentioned, SolarWinds. I think that's kind of a watershed moment. Typically in 2020 and prior, we try to develop this harder outer shell, make it really difficult for bad actors to penetrate us. But I think now we've learned that with enough expertise and time and money, any of us can be penetrated. So now it's a shift of, okay, almost assuming that there's a breach all the time, and how quickly can we identify that something abnormal is going on? That's the big challenge, I think, in 2021 and moving forward, is how do we find out as quickly as possible that something abnormal is going on?
That's very interesting, and I don't know if this is a direct metaphor, but that kind of almost seems like treating it as if, like with domestic terrorism, it's like we know that there are people here or people who have come in from another country to terrorize our country. So I'm sure our law enforcement folks assumes that those people are here. So how do you suss them out, identify them, and catch them before they can do anything bad? That's kind of what it seems like to me. And that's very interesting sort of characterization that you brought forward of the shift. So thank you, Scott, for that.
We, to add to that, Joy, is we always have to assume that we were breached first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really important sort of shift in mindset, and I appreciate that, and I think our listeners, our viewers will as well. So, getting a little bit more into the tactical now, what are some of the resources that public power utilities can lean on to sort of up their cyber game in this environment?
Well, I'm public power. I'm a big fan of the MSISAC. That's just really in our wheelhouse for public power. We're members. We can be members. It's free. The Center for Internet Security, or CIS, they're kind of partnership together. Those are two wonderful resources. Obviously, the Electric ISAC is another great tool, but the MSISAC has a ton of free tools. They have a great threat information system that they send out, very relevant and timely threat information, as well as the EISAC. But as far as tools and everything's concerned, I think the MSISAC and the CIS, Center for Internet Security, are two of the best bang for your buck resources for public power.
So the MSISAC is the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center, and the EISAC is the Electricity Information Sharing and Analysis Center. So how do you join these groups?
Well, if you're a state, local, territorial, or tribal organization, which public power falls under, you're eligible to sign up for the MSISAC, the multi-state ISAC. You have to be a part of the electric sector, which we are. Our members are a part of the electric sector to sign up for the electric ISAC. So we're all eligible to sign up as members of APPA.
That's great. And certainly APPA can also provide specific contact information, and you can reach out to us, but I'm sure you could probably just find, Google it and find the information there as well, and then reach out. But we're happy to provide that resource as well to our viewers. So can you share some examples or stories of how either at Bryan when you were there, or at Bernie at the city level, of how the city or the utility has evolved in terms of meeting newer, more advanced cyber threats? We talked about this a little bit of the change of the mindset, but maybe, how that mindset has changed over the last several years or 10 years as you all have upped your game.
So that's a really good question. Scott and I have been working together now for about 20 years. And both of us started at the electric utility when we got involved in this career path. The culture shift is the biggest hurdle. Then you have to get the budget, the resources, the money to support that program. For the smaller cities out there, I suggest it's going to be a hard one, but somehow you have to allocate some resources to making sure that your networks are as secure as possible. That goes for both your IT and your OT. And we're very fortunate here. I've got a team of about 40 people, and that includes the communication guys that work at the substations and that work at the traffic signals. I'm very happy to see 2 years ago, I think, Scott, April 1st of 2018, we stood up a cybersecurity and compliance department, and we have 4.5 FTEs, full-time equivalents in there, that their 100% focus is on this kind of cyber initiatives. So it takes time, takes money, takes buy-in, and it takes a lot of effort by whoever's leading the charge. In this case, it was me. So it's just a great deal of time.
And I think that just to key off of that, I know that could be, like you kind of implied, daunting, particularly for some of our smaller members, some of whom only have IT exposure, don't have operational technology, don't have SCADA systems or other technology on their operations side, but do have an IT side. But when you're talking about a community, a very small community with only maybe a couple of electric employees, that can seem really daunting. And I will just plug that there are groups that can help. I mean, we talked about signing up for the MSISEC or the EISEC, but there are state level entities that can provide resources, but also we at APPA, we've had developed some resources working in conjunction with the Department of Energy and getting some grant funding to provide some help to our members. And we are focused now more in our current relationship with DOE on the operational technology side, but we still have resources on the IT side as well. But Bernie, I know you've been really active kind of at the statewide as a leader, and maybe just speaking to how some of these state resources come into play, whether they be kind of government resources or private sector resources or a combination, might be interesting for folks to hear that there really is help to be had.
So thank you. I would like to put a plug without naming names. However, when this person watches this video, they will know who I'm talking about. In a small city that has a utility northwest of Fort Worth, they don't have that IT staff, but the city manager is actively participating in all Texas Public Power Association cybersecurity committee meetings. That city manager is heavily involved in engaging with people like me and others that want to evaluate his managed services provider, their agreements, and how we perceive them, how their services are, and strengths and weaknesses. Reaching out to me, we have a statewide IT group. It's not just public power, but it's all municipalities in the state of Texas. And I'm a board member and the chair of the Cybersecurity Committee. And we have engaged with the state of Texas, in our case, state of Texas DIR, and DIR has now engaged. They know we're out there. They knew we were there before, but they really know we're out there now because of voices like ours going and standing in front of them. And then they say, wow, we can help each other out through this process. And now we're engaged. I just got off a call a few minutes ago with DIR, who are going to participate with me in a open discussion at our next statewide meeting.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It's engagement.
That's great.
It's not sticking your head in the sand.
That's a great example. And I would say, in other states, we have, public power has state associations, joint action agencies that are kind of more at the ground level that can help out in their localities, or regional associations in the case of particularly the Northwest, the Tennessee Valley, the Northeast. And then again, but if you all are listening to this, watching this, and don't really know what those resources are, we're happy to try to facilitate those communications and conversations if you just reach out to APPA, and then we can help you in other states. But if you're in the state of Texas now, you know who to go to. So if you haven't already, if you don't already know, we're just going to put you right in touch with Bernie and Scott. So great, that's awesome. So now I'm going to can you maybe take us through in a little bit more detail what process your utility goes through when you learn of a new threat? Sort of what's your first step?
Sure, Joy, I'll take that. We're always monitoring, threat feeds, like I mentioned, the MSISEC and the EISEC. We get alerts from those organizations on a daily basis. And so we're always monitoring those. We bring in automated threat information into a SIM that we have, and that can alert us if anything nefarious is going on in our network based on a threat. But that's what we generally do. We monitor, like SolarWinds as an example. I mean, all the periodicals, all the alerts from MSISAC and CISA and all the different organizations provide a wealth of information that we dig through and research and see if, we don't have SolarWinds Orion, but we do have other SolarWinds products. So then we see, are they impacted? And just kind of, triage from there and see, look, nope, doesn't look like anything yet. But like we said, we contracted with our vulnerability management and pen tester to do kind of a one-off assessment. We've done some deep dives into our own network and forensics, but that's kind of that's how we take it. We're always monitoring any new event. And again, MSISAC and EISAC, they cover pretty much every threat feed that we would need.
If I could, I want to put a plug in right now for our local small university, Texas A&M. Texas A&M University has stood up a SOC, a System Operations Center, that we have secured services through, and it's kind of an extra set of eyes and ears for our SIEM system that we have, and they are alerting us of a lot of traffic coming through that is nefarious. This SOC is staffed by cybersecurity students at Texas A&M, so it gives them real-world experience. And then Scott also has a part-time position where we hire a student out of the cybersecurity department to come in, and that's that half FTE that I mentioned above that we have. Wow. They come in and they're the eyes and ears on all of our phishing emails and things like that goes on. So there are relationships that you can establish at the state and local level. Fortunately, Texas A&M is right here in Bryan College Station.
That's such a great point, Bernie. And I think that's actually where we're going to kind of end our conversation, which is you don't have to go it alone. I heard a number of different resources at the state level, at the local level. Look, the utility and the community itself, the municipality can partner in the first instance. There are universities you could partner with in a very robust way in your community or in your state. There are state level entities that are public power entities, but also in other industry, other parts of the industry that we could partner with. And then there's the federal government, and there's APPA as a national association who can provide resources, as well as the information sharing and analysis centers kind of provide that national view. So when we break it down this way and we realize that really relying on our community, our broad community in this regard is going to really set us up well, that it seems a little less daunting to me as I hear it and as I've heard your expertise brought to play here today. So thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedules to talk to me today. And I know our viewers will really appreciate it. Don't be surprised if you get some calls or some emails, people tracking you down. So with that, thanks again. Have a great weekend. We're filming this right before a long weekend. Have a great weekend and, go forward and conquer cyber warriors. Take care.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.